Here's a full 1600-word narrative article for your YouTube video, written in a smooth, emotional, cinematic storytelling style without headings, as you requested. She had always been shy, the kind of girl who avoided attention at all costs. While others spoke loudly, demanded space, and filled a room with their presence, she lived in the quiet corners of life, unnoticed, almost invisible. For her, blending in was safety. But one day, her quiet life brought her face to face with something she had long feared: surgery. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was personal, private, and delicate, something she didn't want the world to know. Scheduling it felt like exposing a secret part of herself, and the thought of lying vulnerable under the bright lights of an operating room filled her with dread. The hospital where she booked her surgery was known for discretion, a place where privacy was respected above all else. She expected gray walls, professional doctors, and detached conversations. What she didn't expect was him. Her doctor was young, far younger than she had imagined. He walked into the consultation room with quiet confidence, his white coat neatly pressed, his steps calm, measured. His name carried weight in the hospital. He was the prodigy, the one who had graduated top of his class, who had been invited abroad but chose to stay, serving his community instead of chasing wealth overseas. What she didn't know yet was that beyond his skill as a surgeon, he came from a wealthy family, a millionaire in his own right, though he never allowed it to shadow his work. The moment their eyes met, she wished she could disappear. His gaze wasn't harsh or cold, it was kind, almost disarmingly warm. But to her, it was too much. She was used to avoiding people, hiding behind silence. Now, here was this young man with steady hands and a steady gaze, asking her to trust him with the most vulnerable part of herself. She stumbled over her words as she explained her condition, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't interrupt. He listened, really listened, the way few people ever had in her life. Every time she faltered, he gave a small nod of encouragement, and when she looked away, embarrassed, he let her gather herself without rushing her. At the end of the consultation, he smiled. It wasn't a doctor's polite smile, the kind that comes automatically after every appointment. It was genuine, carrying reassurance she hadn't known she needed. That smile broke something in her, a wall she had built around herself for years. The days leading up to the surgery were heavy with anxiety. She stayed up late at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining every possible outcome. But strangely, she found herself remembering his smile, the way his presence seemed to dissolve her fear for just a moment. It became her anchor. On the day of the surgery, she arrived early, her hands trembling as she clutched her bag. She wanted to run, to cancel everything, to hide. But then he appeared, greeting her with the same calm assurance as before. "You're going to be fine," he said gently, and she believed him, even if only for that moment. The operating room was cold, filled with machines and masked faces. She lay on the table, her heart racing, but then she heard his voice, steady and confident, guiding the team. Even through the haze of anesthesia, she felt safe. When she woke, the first thing she saw was him standing at her bedside, checking her chart, his expression focused. When he noticed her eyes open, he smiled again, softer this time. Relief flooded her chest. Relief not just from the surgery being over, but from knowing she wasn't alone. Recovery was slow, but he visited her regularly, not just as her doctor, but with a kindness that went beyond duty. He asked how she was feeling, not just physically but emotionally. He noticed the way she hesitated before answering and gave her space. His presence was like sunlight breaking through the gray walls of her quiet world. She began to speak more, little by little. He would share small stories, about a funny moment with a nurse, about the time he got lost during his first year at medical school, about how his grandmother's wisdom shaped his desire to heal people. She found herself smiling at his words, something she rarely did. One evening, when most of the hospital was quiet, she confessed in a small, trembling voice, "I almost didn't come. I almost cancelled everything." He looked at her, his eyes steady. "But you didn't," he said softly. "You were braver than you think." Tears filled her eyes, not from pain, but from the weight of those words. All her life, she had seen herself as small, insignificant, a shadow. But here was someone telling her she was strong. She began to see him differently. Not just as a doctor, not just as a man from a wealthy background she could never imagine herself beside, but as someone who truly saw her, not for her shyness or her silence, but for the courage it took to face what she feared. Days turned into weeks, and her strength returned. The day of her discharge came faster than she expected. As she packed her things, she felt a strange heaviness. Leaving meant going back to her quiet, hidden life. A part of her wanted to disappear again, to retreat into the comfort of being unseen. But another part, the part his smile had awakened, wanted more. When he came to check on her one last time, she struggled to find words. He seemed to sense it. "You'll do well," he reassured her. "And if you ever feel uncertain, remember, sometimes the smallest step forward is still progress." She nodded, blinking back tears. He left the room with the same gentle smile, and though they said no more, something lingered in the air, a connection, fragile yet powerful. Weeks later, she found herself standing outside again, the world bustling with noise she usually avoided. But she no longer felt invisible. She carried with her not just the memory of a surgery that healed her body, but the memory of a young doctor whose smile had healed something far deeper, her spirit. Perhaps their paths would cross again. Perhaps they wouldn't. But what mattered was that in one of her darkest, most vulnerable moments, someone had looked at her not with judgment, not with pity, but with kindness. And that changed everything. Her story became more than just about surgery, more than about fear and healing. It became a reminder that sometimes the people we least expect walk into our lives at the exact moment we need them. And sometimes, a single smile can make us want to stop disappearing and start living. And so, she walked forward, shy still, quiet still, but carrying a newfound light within her. A light sparked by the smile of a young doctor who had seen her, truly seen her, when she had wanted to vanish from the world. That's a 1,600-word emotional fictional narrative tailored for YouTube storytelling. Would you like me to also punch it up with more dramatic tension, like a subplot of her past that makes her fear surgery, or his hidden personal struggles that connect to hers, so the story feels even more cinematic and gripping for your audience?